everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar. I am your host, as always. And joining me this week to discuss the champions who maintain their unbeaten run with a 1-1 draw to, I don't know where they are in the league, a team miles behind, as you can't actually see them. First of all, it's Andy McGowan.
Hello, folks.
How are you feeling, Andy?
I'm feeling okay. I've got a wee cold, so if my dulcet tones aren't quite as soothing as usual, that's why.
Oh, you'll need tunes.
I
You make
a
you
wee bit
breathe
like
more easily.
Martin Ram. I'll give you a few tunes. Do you want a few tunes?
Yeah. Given the fact that we're not allowed to gather in a group, we'll probably get lifted just for this. So probably best not to give them any extra things. And you may have heard the mellifluous laugh of Mr. Alex Staff. Good afternoon, Alex.
Great work there, David. Good afternoon, David. I hope you're well.
I'm all right. Right, folks, let's start. Obviously, it was an Old Firm game. Usually, I don't know about you, Andy. I mean, you very similar to me in our the way we approach Rangers, and you know, I woke up with a battle fever, but I slept on Saturday night. That's not always something I do before an Old Firm match. I think that the emotions of the last 2 weeks, the fact that we'd won the title, and then everything that happened on Thursday night, I know that, you know, and as I say, you know, come Sunday morning, I was like, right, Rangers into them, but it just didn't feel like a usual Old Firm build-up. Is it because of the circumstances of Thursday? Is it just that at the end of the day, these are kickabouts?
I think that much like postcoital bliss, the desire just isn't there straight afterwards, and that's the way I would put it, because the emotion and what we went through in the last 2 weeks in terms of celebrating 55, it first of all pragmatically rendered this pointless, right? This game did not matter one jot in the context of the league. That's a fact. So what it did leave is a kind of need for a marker, both for them as a team and for us as the team that's want to go the rest of the season unbeaten. So I'm the same as you, David. I could not get overly exerted by it. I welcomed that fact because I think too much adrenaline is often wasted on these games, and I actually found it quite relaxing to go into Saturday night, Sunday morning without any of those kind of your stomach turning at the thought of things that could go wrong or could go right. And the game itself was pretty much along those lines, and I think, as we'll discuss today, the desire and the wherewithal that we've seen from this Rangers team all season wasn't quite there. But the burden of proof of who was a better team was on Celtic to prove, because we've got a body of evidence this season that speaks for itself.
Yeah, Alex, I think that's the thing, right? You know, when we sit down, and I notice a lot of people were on social media and on, you know, follow and various other websites talking about why did the team not press the way it usually does, and it's not FIFA. They played on Thursday night. They've had, as Andy mentioned, this incredible roller coaster 2 weeks. They're human. I don't think they had the legs to go out and play the way they did, you know, in the fixture at the start of the season. I think it was, you've got to be realistic about these are human beings.
Yeah, 2 days preparation against 2 weeks is. If it was the other way around, we would certainly have expected to have more energy and be the team able to go and dictate the game to them. So why we didn't expect that the other way around, you know, it's a bit like the old, it's kind of what football fans do, I suppose, isn't it? Wanting the cake and eating it. But it wasn't a surprise that we didn't quite have the same sort of energy levels as we might have had earlier in the season, or in a game where we've had a full week to prepare. I thought we did okay that way. Certainly, I think it was more individual players than the whole team, though. Like Ryan Kent looked as though he could have ran all day, for example, where I thought that Glenn Kamara's legs went kind of early compared to how he would usually do. So, you know, it wasn't like a
understandably.
Yes, of course. No, it's not a criticism of any of them. I should caveat this by saying it was just there were a few players where you could see the legginess was there, you know. And I'm sure Gerrard was expecting that as well. They gave a more than good enough account of themselves, I thought, given everything that's went on in the past couple of weeks, and given the fact that it's human nature for this. This is the most difficult thing now is when you've reached a target you've been spending 3 years to try and reach.
Yeah,
it's extremely difficult to, especially such a short time afterwards, to then lift from that. I believe this squad will kick on from winning the league and improve, and many of these players will actually get better and get more confident in themselves. But that's not going to happen straight away. That's a little bit of a longer process, and there's still that little bit of kind of title winning hangover, which was evident in that game. But I don't think it's going to be a major problem for this squad going forward. I think it was just the circumstance and the timing of this one game.
Andy, we talk a lot on here, and football fans in general do. We'll talk a lot about things like words like mentality, mentality monsters, as Jurgen Klopp said. And we talk a lot about emotional things like bottle and spirit and determination and resilience and all these kind of words. But I wonder if sometimes we do underplay mental fatigue, which is, yes, they're all professional athletes. That's absolutely correct. And they are fit and well trained. And I think we even saw again yesterday in the last 20 minutes that Rangers were fitter than Celtic, even though we did 2 games in the last 2 weeks and they did 2 weeks off. But mental fatigue is a different thing. That it's your sharpness, it's your decision making, and it can just be a little bit. And I think, as Alex said, the reaching the goal, the celebrations that followed, everything that it meant to everyone, then the 2 games against Slavia, then everything that happened to Glenn Kamara when he was racially abused and the aftermath of that all does contribute. And it's maybe something as fans that we're a little selective about when we apply the mental side of the game to the game.
Yeah, I think you're correct 100%. It is taken for granted a wee bit, and we refer to it as if it's something that you can switch on and off and that everybody can apply. It's not a case that everybody's got desire and everybody's got the required mentality. It's actually a case of individuals and then the collective. And what I would say for the Rangers team is that this season, as supporters, how have we felt as we wake up in the morning and think about winning this league, and as we go to bed at night and think about winning this league, and as we eat our dinner and think about winning this league? How have we felt in terms of that pressure, that expectation, that absolute need that we had for it? How does it feel for a player to be actually in the eye of that storm, not just once a week, but every single day? Because I can tell for Gerrard that the focus has been a daily thing. So for them to come through that with their eyes on the prize the whole time, win the league so early, and then come out of that, and then, as you say, have a not unremarkable 2 weeks, right? These 2 weeks, we've had the most highest intensity game physically and mentally, I think, the 2 games against Slavia, and then had the kind of spectre of an Old Firm game at the end of it. I think it's quite unreasonable to think that a team can do that the whole season, have the results we've had for this entire season, remain unbeaten by the cup tie, and then lay any kind of question mark at the feet of the team for how we performed on Sunday. So the mental aspect is 100% got to come into play. I think the physical aspect came into play because it reminded me, I don't know about you two, but it reminded me very much of the first Old Firm game under Gerrard when we came back for the furthest part of Russia against Ufa. We played with 9 men. So there was echoes of that after playing with 9 men on Thursday against a very good team. And I think that's why, I mentioned on social media, I thought we controlled the game. And I tried to caveat that by saying, well, we controlled the game in terms of how you can control a game when you've not got the ball. And me and you will be familiar with this with Walter Smith's tactics in the 9-in-a-row era, where we used to go on the back of a heavy schedule, go to a place like Parkhead and Aberdeen and get the results without actually holding the stats on possession and shots had and all these kind of stuff. That was the kind of game it was, because I thought we kind of forced Celtic to play in a certain manner and it contained them to a degree. That's controlling the game. So all things being said, I think it's a very good indicator of where our team is, that we can go into a game when we're not firing all cylinders, where we might be a wee bit subpar, where we might have 2 or 3 players actually playing very, very poorly, because I thought Aribo and Hadji were pretty much, as attacking forces, they weren't really there. So to come away then for Parkhead with a draw, I thought that's a very positive thing. And I like the noises come from them, because if they're happy with what they saw, based on all this context, then roll on next season.
Alex, I thought we started the game reasonably brightly, but Andy had touched on something there that we'll touch on later, that we maybe just didn't quite have it in the last third, although Alfie came on to a really good game and I thought Kent was one of our best players. But when we did lose the opening goal, we haven't lost a lot of goals this season, but there's a fair concentration of them seem to have come out of something similar to that. Now, yesterday with Leon Balogun right back again, and he had another torrid time. He's not a right back, and there are certain games you get away with it in, but Celtic were quite clever. They put Edouard on him, and he just didn't have a good half, let's be honest. Good ball in from Edouard, again, not stopping the cross coming in, but fair play, it was a good ball. But then Helander caught his heels a wee bit, certainly Goldson seemed to think that he should have done better with it, as he lets El Yunusi across him, and nothing Alan McGregor could do.
Actually, some people might think I'm being harsh here, so I'm happy to take that criticism if so.
Alex, nobody ever thinks you're harsh. It's always the opposite.
I actually thought Goldson's reaction was one of, oops, I made a wee bit of an arse of that, and I'm going to, I think he was frustrated with himself as well. And this is where I'm talking about with the leggy kind of nature. I reckon in a normal situation where Goldson's not feeling the effects of the last, and emotionally, we talk about emotional tiredness, that guy was right up there when you seen his reaction to what happened on Thursday, and then his press conference on the Friday, which obviously, David, you were there at as over Zoom or however they're held. That was a guy who was really feeling that. He had to be in between Balogun and Helander there. He had to get himself, he had to be busting a gut to get in there to cut out that cross in the first place. But you could just see he just didn't quite have the legs to get there at that time. And then Helander, when you're 1v1 in a defensive situation like that, in the middle of the box, Helander's usually quite good. He's usually very good at defending that. And this time he was just kind of outdone by somebody that had that wee bit more desire than him in that moment. There was other moments of the game where Helander defended very well. So just in that one, he got done there. But I thought, personally, I'm kind of looking at it and thinking, yeah, Balogun could have done better. But I actually thought Goldson should have done a lot better as well. And nobody seems to be talking about that. But, the position for a defender would normally be in between ball in front of the 6-yard box. And if you look at where he is when that cross comes in, he's kind of doing nothing. So, but that was, I'm not having a real go there. It was just a kind of legs thing. But yeah, they really did expose Balogun in that first half. I thought that midfield, Kamara was struggling to track back. Again, leggy and just kind of struggling to get into certain positions. Balogun was left exposed quite a bit, and the gap between him and Goldson was huge, on that side. So they were continually finding it in there. And he's not an actual right back, as you say. He doesn't really know, or he's played it long enough in the past, but he seems to have kind of got out of that habit. So certain little things that you could see Patterson doing when he came on, where he wasn't going and instantly pressing, he wasn't going away over. At times he was happy to let a player have the ball away out wide until they got to a certain place where Balogun was going chasing it straight away. Little things like that were catching him out. Bit of a shame. A lot of focus on him now, as happens. The Rangers, you're only as good as your last game, aren't you? But we should kind of remember that he's been played at a position there in many respects. He wasn't signed to be a right back, and it's wasn't ideal for him, and it was a kind of difficult game for him. But hopefully Tavernier's on the way back soon, and we won't have to see it too much now.
Yeah, you saw the difference. I thought even again when Nathan Patterson came on,
yeah,
and I thought that it closed it down a lot. I mean, it was still Celtic were still coming down there, but they didn't focus and concentrate on it because they just weren't getting the joy they were getting previously. And Celtic then did pile on the pressure. Then Andy, the penalty claim from them, the incident. Now, got to be honest here on Hernand. There's no point us telling fibs to the listeners. When it first happened, I went, ooh. And when I saw Colum running in, I was like, he's giving it. But of course, he books Edouard. And I think when you see the replays, it's quite clear that there isn't any contact. And it's also clear to me, if you watch it, that he's going down already. As soon as he takes a turn inside, he starts going down. Now, an argument that you hear from people when they're trying to defend that is they say, he's anticipating contact. Okay. that's nice, but it still doesn't change the fact he's made a decision that he's going to go down and sort of hope for contact. And they say, well, why would he go down when he's about to put the ball in the net? I don't know. You'd have to ask him that, but he has. And while it's odd to praise Willie Collum, I thought, he got that spot on. And unless you're looking at it with green tinted spectacles and performing mental gymnastics a la, well, there doesn't have to be contact for it to be a foul. Well, it kind of does there. It wasn't a penalty, in my opinion.
No, the same as you. When it happened in real time, I thought it was going to be a penalty. I've since mystified with this claim that there was contact. I mean, if there's contact, well, remember the Weetabix adverts? No, was it Ready Brek? You used to have a glow on you.
Yes.
I'm
surprised you didn't remember that because it was a bright orange glow.
So that's the only contact you could have with his natural aura or something like that. Because I cannot see it. And the narrative around it is quite fascinating because I think if that was a Rangers player or Morelos, for example, doing that, I think the narrative coming from our side of things would be pretty much anger at the striker or whoever the player in question was.
Sadiq.
Finishing it. Sadiq's the exact example because that is pretty much what happened there, that he went down when he had the chance to score a goal and Gerrard blasted him. And I think to a man, you would have been very hard pressed to find a Rangers supporter that had any form of sympathy or, well, this is why he did it. He's a professional player and they look for the penalty because it's sure and all this crap. So I'm pretty mystified at how forgiving they are of Edward, particularly given the season, because if I was pointing fingers at who's let him down this season, he'd be pretty close to the top if I was a Celtic supporter, heaven forbid. So I'm mystified at this narrative. It wasn't a penalty. There's no way it was a penalty. It was a reckless chance for Barisic, but just because it's reckless doesn't mean it's a penalty. And he should have buried that and killed the game there and then. He never. Hard fucking cheese. And I think it tells you a wee bit of my mentality over at their side of the city because they're so fragile. I don't think they can face up to the reality of how they should be looking at that situation. That should be lying squarely on Edward's shoulders for not killing the game for him. I'm mystified why didn't he take a shot because even on his, is he like right-footed, left-footed?
He should still have scored. There was a couple of guys on the line, but he had time once he's taken the touch inside to kind of look up and just put it into an unguarded bit of the net. Alex, you and I are great believers in that it doesn't automatically mean that if it's not a penalty that it's a dive, right? Yeah. I think that there are times that there's incidents in the box and you hear pundits say, well, if he's not given a penalty he's got to book him. No, he doesn't. He can think it's not enough of a foul for it to be a penalty, but the guy maybe was clipped or whatever. It's not that. That's not the rule. But that was a dive. that was simulation. And I'm a great believer in reactions of players telling you a lot. Firstly, I think Barisic's reaction, which is that absolutely, I can't believe he's gone down reaction, followed by Celtic players, and they weren't exactly all over Willie Collum.
No. Which they would have been. For them to come out afterwards and say it was a stonewaller, they didn't really act like that at the time. And it's not as if they don't have previous for that. So, it's not a team that's known for just letting the referee get on with it, is it? Not many teams are.
They don't really do meek acceptance of decisions, no.
No, so I would have expected them to have been hounded. I would have expected the manager to have been out there at half-time having a go at him. Things like that, if they truly believed it was a stonewaller. There is one camera angle that this seems to be focused on, which is done in such an angle that you can't really see the distance between his boot and Barisic's leg. So it does look like a bit of contact, the one from behind him. But then every other angle you look at, you can see clearly that there's not been any contact. And I liked your point earlier, David, it's something that people seem to be willing to just forget. No, there doesn't have to be contact for it to be a foul, but that's not universal. You know what I mean? That's not for every situation, as you point out. In that situation there, for that to have been a foul, there would have had to have been contact. He didn't have to be honest, much as he didn't have to dive, I'll tell you nothing, he didn't have to. He could have taken the hit. If he was desperate for the penalty, he could have left his foot there and just taken the hit.
Well, he missed like it was. That's what I mean. He mistimed. He's made the decision. And look, football, you don't have time to sit and conscious. We've all played, even kick about with your mates. You don't know why you do certain things. It's instinct a lot of the time. It happens before your conscious thought. He has, for whatever reason, decided to do it, and he starts going down. And you're absolutely right, because if he'd continued as if to try and score the goal, he probably would have been fouled. But because he goes down before he gets to the spot where a foul would take place, then it's a dive. So moving on from that, then. Sorry, Andy, go on.
Can I just going to say, the acid test is, see if it was a penalty, put an appeal for his yellow card, Celtic, and see what the committee, the infamous committee, think here. Roll the dice. Tell us how much you believe it was a penalty. Appeal the yellow card.
Yep, fair point. So moving on then, and came a moment that we've waited on for a while. This has been a great season because we've taken away everything from them. I mean, we've literally taken away everything from them. Oh, can you see the Rangers coming? Yep, look up. 10 in a row. Nope. Have you ever seen Gerrard win the league? Yes. And then the last thing, the only thing keeping we played well for 20 minutes at Ibrox trophy company was at least Morelos hasn't scored against his trophy. And it's gone as well, eradicated. I'm a great believer, Alex, in unnecessary corners often lead to goals. Maybe it's just because I look for it, but right, I know confirmation bias, but I do think that there's a heavier aspect of it. And Kenny turns round, no idea whether they think there was a foul on him, by the way, but he turns round under no pressure and decides he'll thump the ball back to his goalkeeper from the halfway line, gets it wrong completely, and it goes out for a corner. Barisic delivers a beauty. Celtic are not good at defending set pieces. It's Leon Balogun who gets there. There's, I think, another 2 Rangers players behind him ready to do it as well. Nods it down into the ground. It's not going in as far as I can see from the angle. No. And then Alfredo at the back post. He's alive, gets in, header. Brave header because he could have gone right into the post. Puts it away and it's 1-1. And initially when I saw it was him, my heart surged, as every Rangers fans did. Then I thought, given his luck, I immediately looked at the linesman and went, but no, and he timed his run perfectly. He's well onside. Oh, what a moment it was for him. And I was just so delighted because of the shit he's taken for not scoring in these matches.
There's not been many Rangers players in the past who have deserved a goal more against them than him. So it's been, it's a real feel-good moment for all of us. Exactly what you wanted from the day, wasn't it? A Morelos goal. That was, if you had to choose anything, that was kind of what you were looking for. On your first point, David, I just kind of laughed because I remember in the Slavia game there was a kind of long ball played and Patterson could have left it and he nodded it out for a corner. And like you, my first thought was, he's always linked to goals.
Yeah. It might, as I say, it might just because I look for it. But, when I watch games, it's amazing how often somebody under no pressure. I'm not talking about a defensive clearance or whatever, or a goalkeeper save. They're corners running the mouth stuff. I'm talking about ones where a guy is trying something else. He's trying to clear it and he slices it, or a pass back. That's generally what it is that goes wrong. It was weird. It was great. It is weird and it happened, but it was so great to see him. And Andy, he's worked so hard and he has come into a goal scoring form in the second half of the season, as we mentioned before. Alfie's a guy, he gets on runs. And usually in his time at Rangers, it's been the first half of the season. This year, it's been the second. And he just deserved it. And man, did he enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think this season, I know he was very, very, we were relying on him last season, and when his goals dried up, basically that kind of signalled the slump, the post-Christmas slump. But I think this season what we've seen is that he's going to be a hard guy to replace because you've got Itten, who I rate highly, you've got Kemar Roof, who's a top-class striker, you've got Reid Defoe, whose reputation speaks for himself. They don't knit the team together anywhere close to what Morelos does in the system we're playing, with the 2 10s round about him. So, the goal thing against Celtic, to me, was neither here nor there because we've seen it with Chris Boyd, we've seen it with Gordon Jury, and really it doesn't matter because it was more than offset and silverware.
Boyd did score.
Boyd, once, and I think, was it Noah?
It was something I mean in this game like this one.
It was when it was all decided, yeah. But
that
but
kind of get levelled at him as well.
Yeah, Jury's the one that I think that it gets levelled at a lot. Picked up a lot of silver in his time at Rangers, Gordon Jury.
Yes,
I will say that.
Loads.
Yeah, but no, it was just a stick that was used to beat them, and now they can't.
Sorry, guys, I was just going to say that I noticed after the game, or I certainly saw it at half-time, and they're talking about the set-piece thing and Martin O'Neill's there and such like, and he's, trying to defend it as being, it's not a structural thing. It's obviously just because the players aren't going to go and header the ball. It can be both. And see if you look at our goal at Ibrox against them, the own goal, the Callum McGregor own goal. If that doesn't hit McGregor, Alfie's standing at the back post for a tap-in. It was exactly the same sort of goal, or exactly the same sort of corner as we scored from there on Sunday. So this notion that it's just because they don't want to go and header a ball. There's something else going on when the main striker in your opposition team is standing about the back post with yards of space at a corner, Yeah,
they can't do it. The players' zonal system, I'm not sure they understand.
It's weird to me that they're that bad at it. You would think, even just as professional footballers, even if the coaching in the last management team or the current management team isn't great, it's set pieces. You've been getting coached in them all through your youth, and you would think they would take command of it and go, right, this is what we're going to do now, because this isn't working. But for whatever reason, it's excuse making, I suppose, isn't it? They're just happy just to sit back and let it happen.
I think at that level of football, it's a personnel issue, because as a player, you've either got it in you to attack the ball or you've not. I don't actually think it's something, you can coach it and you can try to coach it and you can get a wee bit better at it, but I think it's something that's innate in you. You've seen it, we've seen players like Goff, Butcher, they had players like Baldy, Valherin, would attack anything in there. I don't think they've got the players in there, even when they've got Julian in there. And I think that's the absolute core cause of their issues at set pieces. It's a personnel issue. Plus, it doesn't help that you've got two fullbacks that are pretty small and crap. So I think they're being kind in terms of their issue there. We clearly took advantage of it, and I was interested to hear Gerrard refer specifically to the fact that Balogun was in there, perhaps ahead of Patterson, because of that fact and that fact alone. It gave us a wee bit more aggression and height in both boxes. So, listen, seeing the set pieces, I've said for long enough, and it's no rocket science, and I'm not painting myself to be somebody that knows something that you don't. See, when you're not winning games, you're not playing well, you find solutions in different ways, and something I've had levelled at Rangers for years is our set pieces weren't good enough. And that has totally been blown away over the course of the 3 years of Gerrard, because the delivery has got better. We've got class delivery, and we've got guys in the team every week that can attack the ball, and the proof's in the pudding. I think it's something that we need to be very, very proud of. And if it's we Colshaw that's the culprit or the man that's masterminded that, then again it just shows you the depth of the management team. It's not just about one guy in the dugout. Yeah,
and I think that, to be fair, Celtic did have a couple of good chances in the first half that they made, and Alan McGregor's pulled out a couple of great stops. But the idea that it was the Celtic were all over us, which is kind of what they've tried to peddle, I just didn't feel at all. And into the second half, far less so. They've had a couple of efforts from distance, and that really is about it. And Rangers, I thought, began to get a grip of the game more. And again, Alex, interestingly, I really did feel this, that despite the fact they've had 2 whole weeks to prepare for this, they've played less games than us, they've certainly played less games than us in the last month, Rangers looked fitter to me. And I thought as the game went on, I got more and more confident that, if a team's going to grab one here, it's going to be us.
We used the subs well that way as well. But yeah, I totally agree. There was a spell in the last 10 minutes for a good spell as well. Maybe in fact the last 20, I would say. Good spells in the last 20 minutes where we were camped right in their half. Every clearance, we were picking it up. Stephen Davis looked as though you would have thought he was the one that had the 2 weeks off. Absolutely dominating it in there, in terms of fitness, in terms of physicality. And we were a little unlucky, especially on the break, not to make more a couple of chances. And as I say, we used the subs well. Scott Wright and Kemar Roof, when they came on, really added to the energy levels as well. Scott Wright in particular, I felt. We used extra word for him. He does look a player. Good,
yeah. And I was going to bring this up, so we might as well bring this up now. Rangers started yesterday with Joe. Now, injuries are biting. I think because we've got good squad guys, good guys who can come in. But injuries are biting. Obviously, no James Tavernier. Obviously, no Ryan Jack yesterday. Both were missed. I think both would have been very useful yesterday. Kamar Ruth getting back to fitness, not there yet. Scott Arfield getting back to fitness, not there yet. So there were issues. Nathan Patterson on the bench, we were told, had a slight knock before it. So there were, options were a bit limited in certain positions. But this is what maybe the fourth or fifth Old Firm game that I think has passed Joe Aribo by. And they've been all different circumstances. And he's there's been some certain contributions and stuff, but he seems to play on the edge of this game. And I'm kind of looking at somebody like Wright and saying, in a game like this, would you be as well putting in another midfielder a la Arfield in there and then going with somebody like Wright wide who's got a wee bit more pace than either Adji or Aribo, but still has the ability to link up?
Well, it's funny because the first game at Parkhead this season we started with Barker and did pretty much that, which a lot of people forget. We absolutely dominated that game. And Brandon Barker started it and took a lot of abuse on the day for his performance, but he was given a specific job and he done it very well on that day in many ways. It wasn't really an attacking job, but he was asked to deal with Ayer stepping out from their back three, and while he was on the pitch, Ayer never done it once. Barker goes off the park, Ayer starts getting some joy. But yeah, I think Gerrard has that sort of in mind. It's just that Scott Wright's not really had the chance yet to show that, when he starts a game, he's as effective. He's obviously only come off the bench for us. That'll come. With Aribo, I think the last time I would say he played well against him was probably the League Cup final, where everybody did, and he was really good that day. He's an inconsistent player.
I'd rather that he played badly and we won.
Yes. Of
right,
course,
can I just say this now? If it's Joe Aribo not having his best game, he's not been rubbish. He's just, at times, he's just not been as involved as you'd want. But yeah, I'd rather have that than him playing really well and us losing. I'll just state that for the record.
I think there's a lot of focus on Aribo in general because we know how talented he is. And I know that Andy's a big fan of him that way and has certain thoughts on how we should use him as well. He is at the moment. Still, when I know people think that 23, 24 isn't young, it is in footballing terms. Really, you don't really hit that consistent stride until you get to late 20s. You only need to look at the improvement in James Tavernier and Connor Goldson over the past 3 seasons to see that even when you hit 26, 27, there's still more to come. And Aribo's not even there yet. So players like him and Hadji is another one who didn't quite have his best day either. I'm a huge fan of him, David. I know you are as well. But he's still, I think that's his first start in this fixture. So that again, that wee bit of experience, he played really well when we played them at Ibrox when he came on at half time, but didn't have the same impact in this one. These guys are just not quite finding that level of consistency yet, but there's a big focus on them because they're so talented when they're at their best. And maybe sometimes we need to just take a wee step back and think maybe we're being a wee bit, overly critical of them just because of how good they can be. And maybe just, a wee bit harsh, but only a bit because they should be coming away from these games thinking to themselves, I want to be better than that, and Joe Aribo is a good example of that. He should be coming away from that game and saying, I wasn't good enough there. I need to step this up. What do I need to do that? David, he's punted about positions, hasn't he? He started in midfield yesterday. Yeah, on Thursday, he was one of the front three. On the Thursday before, he was one of the midfield three. He's kind of consistent, but we can't seem to quite find where to put him yet. It seems to be there's different strengths that you're just not sure what's going to show up on the day.
So, Andy, we get to the end. It's a 1-1 draw. Celtic convinced themselves that they were hard done by, yada yada. And I've seen in the kind of Celtic-minded press stuff about, the gap's not that big. It is. It's literally 20 points. And unlike Tim's with typewriters, league tables don't lie. If there's been a few points in it, then you can point to injuries, you can point to luck, decisions, all of that. That's okay. 20? No. Right? No. And the idea that somehow that people are seeing a gap that doesn't exist, it literally fucking exists. That's it over there.
So I'm not for the first time I've heard this kind of rhetoric that for some reason they've handed the league to us this year. Now, it's nonsense, first of all, because you cannot argue with a team that's went the whole period unbeaten. So let's say they had a good season, they'd still be probably 5 or 6 points behind us anyway. And even with that context, us going to Parkhead yesterday and drawing would have been a great result for us, right? So if it was a great result for us if they were within 5 or 6 points, what kind of result is it when they're 20 ahead? And I think there's a number of things at play here. There's a desire at Celtic to make sure that they try to rebuild the narrative around this team and this squad, because at this point in time they have major problems, because they're going to need a rebuild of not only the team, the management team, they're going to need a rebuild of the football structure as well, because as we found to our cost with Caixinha and so forth, if you've not quite got the football structure in terms of director of football or whatever you want to call it in place, or even a notion of it in place, and the recruitment structure, then it's very hard to then get the manager and the dugout in the right place as well. So they're going to be dealing with it, right? And I fully expect them to make announcements in the Rara Brigade. Rara Brigade, that's quite a literal thing for them, isn't it? But they're going to be they're going to be doing their cheerleading as usual, because they need to get their fans on side. Their fans are fucking disgusted with them because they've capitulated so badly this season and gave up the Holy Grail and rendered quadruple trebles and everything else pretty much pointless, right? Let's face facts. They can't stomach it, and therefore they need to sell season tickets, and they need to sell them pretty soon. And that is why we're seeing them try to dress this up as some kind of positive, and why it was a definite penalty, and why they need to be believing in the squad. This is all directed towards a notion that they need to rebuild a sense of positivity around their club. So the reality is that's not the case. The reality is that we've been on the other side of this conversation when we've went to play Celtic, when they've won the league quite comfortably, and we take belief from the fact we beat them after it, right? And in the Gerrard years, it's kind of contributed to the forward motion in terms of progress, right? But in this case, it's different for Celtic, because they're not coming from a place where they've had 10 years of shit, and a win yesterday would have been seen as a big positive. They've had dominance for 9 years. So I think that we can be pretty comfortable in reality. And I mean, us sitting here in reality and knowing the true context of that result yesterday, I think we can let them think whatever they want, because I think it's quite useful for them to be thinking that, because if they think the gap's not that big and they think it can be turned around pretty quickly, I'm not saying it can be, but I think that they're being overly optimistic there, because if we get recruitment right in the summer and the ins and outs don't too dramatically kind of change the shape of our squad, then we can be pretty positive going into next year again. So listen, it's all noise. As usual, it's all noise. But I didn't think they'd revert back to the paranoia, conspiracy bollocks about penalties so quickly.
Oh, I did.
Well, you know, if that's their kind of attitude, then it's good for us. It really is, because it's denial.
No, that's definitely their potato chips. That's their jam. That's what they like to do. They feel comfortable in it. And yeah, you certainly saw that yesterday. But yeah, delude themselves all they like, because if it's a case of we just need a couple of adjustments, no, you don't. And yeah, knock yourselves out if that's what you believe. If you're going to allow yourself to be persuaded by a board that don't have a lot of money to spend, that you don't need to spend a lot of that money, then wonderful, knock yourselves out, because you are miles behind us. The proof is in the pudding. And I remember, and you'll remember this, guys, 1999-2000, a fantastic Rangers team blows away Celtic. We then added a lot of players in summer, and the next year it collapsed, absolutely died in its arse, and Celtic ran away with it. And that summer we said, aye, well, you know, we're really good. We blew it. It was us, you know, Advocate falling out with these players, all that, you know, we'll be better next year. Didn't work out like that, did it? And Advocate was gone by Christmas. But yep, we'll see what happens with that. Now, one gratifying thing to come out of what was a pretty horrible few days with a reprehensible scum club Slavia Prague continuing to fail to take responsibility for the actions of their player was the rest of Scottish football back, I was going to say standing up and backing Glenn Kamara, and in some cases literally the decision was taken by Rangers and followed by by the Rangers players, I've got to say, and followed by other clubs to no longer take the knee but to stand up against racism because they felt that it had become a meaningless gesture. And certainly I think we've got to back the players on that decision, and it was good to see the rest of Scottish football, Alex, doing the same, and British football as a whole. And I've seen a lot of comments from English fans saying we're all Arsenal, people that don't like Arsenal down south when they're going to play Slavia, and it has been the one positive you can take out of this rather disgusting stain on football created by Slavia.
Yeah, it shows that at least as much as taking the knee seems to have lost its impact, and there's no doubt about that, it shows that it at least had one initially, because this conversation's now, as you said, it's nationwide now, it's big. It hasn't just been something that happened in the Rangers game and then forgotten about 3 days later. It's made an impact beyond that, which if we're being honest with ourselves, David, football wasn't like that 10 years ago. If something like this happened not that long ago, it would have largely been forgotten about after a week. But no, this is now a situation where football, especially in the UK, and it's because we're here, we see it more, is willing to talk about this. Slavia really haven't done much for the old Eastern European stereotype this way, have they? They have some of their statements, some of the things their fans have done have been almost make you angry.
No, they do make you angry. They're genuinely disgusting. And the fact that we're hearing today that the police have received a complaint from Slavia about an alleged assault going on is again them trying to paint themselves as the victims when in fact they should be dealing with the issue as it happened. And something I wanted to ask you about, Andy, was something said by Michael Stewart. And we know he's an idiot, but he does have a platform, and he's a platform that we pay for. We are forced by law to pay to watch the BBC, that whether you watch it or not. So at the end of the day, we invest in this. So I think we do have a right to criticise. And he got a lot of copped a lot of flack. Rio Ferdinand speaking out against him, along with his brother Anton, for suggesting that there was no proof and that we needed proof of this alleged assault, alleged racial abuse of Glenn Kamara. Now, firstly, would he have reacted like that had it been a player from another club in Scotland? I really have my doubts. But here's the thing. What he is therefore saying to anybody who's the victim of this, to any member of the BAME community is, unless you have it on tape, then we won't believe you. That's what he's saying, because that's the proof he clearly needs, that we need to have it on tape. Life doesn't work like that. And this is how we have things like trials where evidence is given. You look at the evidence you do have. Now, the evidence to this are, what do we know of Glenn Kamara? Is he a player who reacts in the fashion that he did? No. So straight away, there's something for you to consider. Secondly, do we have a witness? Yes, we do. We have Bongani Zungu, who heard it instantly. Well, how, was he in league with Glenn Kamara? Well, they both said the same thing independently of each other on the pitch instantly. So unless that they communicated what the remark was by telepathy, then yes, it's clear that it did happen. And it was Rio Ferdinand who said it's people like you that stop people coming forward because they think they won't be listened to. And this made me very angry indeed, as did his response on the Saturday where he said, I find it hard to take that I'm being lambasted. Oh, that's a shame, Michael, but you're being lambasted for words you chose to say. He's being lambasted by somebody because of the colour of his skin. So if you find that hard to take, can you imagine how Glenn Kamara feels? The lack of compassion, the lack of basic decency, Andy, and more importantly, from me, that the self-regard, the selfishness, that he's somehow the victim, that he's got anything to complain about when in fact he should be just doing what, to be fair, the rest of Scottish football did, which is go, we're right behind you, Glenn. disgusted me.
The Michael Stewart is pretty black and white. He's opinionated and he's paid for his opinion, so that's fine. But he is pretty black and white. There's no kind of tempered, measured halfway house where he can consider even the potential for an alternative viewpoint. It's pretty black and white with him. And that's fine, right? Because in matters of football, really, it's no life and death, and you can say a penalty's not a penalty when it is, and all sorts of stuff. But I've also got sympathy for people in the public eye who have to comment on issues of race, because personally speaking, I'm pretty terrified of doing it, even on this platform, because I can't actually verbalise properly the things that are mattering in that kind of conversation, and that's fine as well. And I think we've seen glimpses of it in the Black Lives Matter thing came about in the summer, David, and we had to tread very carefully because things can be misconstrued and carried, and before you know it, they grow arms and legs. So I get all that as well. However, in this instance, again, I don't like to see folk cancelled or provoked into retractions because they've given an opinion. But this doesn't fall under this. What Stewart did doesn't kind of fall under those allowances or those kind of benefits of doubt, because what he did there, as you've quite rightly said, is he's acting as if, well, it's black and white here, and it's one man's word against another, so that's it. No, it's no, because as you've quite rightly pointed out, there's things there that any kind of reasonable person would calculate to the point where, this probably happened. And even if we give a benefit of doubt to the alleged perpetrator, I think I can give support towards Glenn Kamara, because if it's true that this is harmed, it's utterly disgusting. So I listened to Michael Stewart on that Sports Sound episode. I thought he was less fluent in terms of his arguments than normal, right?
He has a tell. Somebody should point this out to me. He has a tell for when he's talking shit, when he's saying something he doesn't believe, and when he's doing something just to be a troll. Then you're right. He said, and it's and it's all the time, because it's not coming fluently because he's having to think about it. And one of Michael Stewart's great problems is that he thinks he's cleverer than he is. Yeah. And his problem is he's too stupid to realise that he's not as clever, and that people who aren't as thick as he is can see that he's stupid. And again, he said, I find it ironic, and he used ironic in the wrong sense. And that's always, to me, an indicator of somebody that is writing intellectual checks that their mind can't cash, because it's a word you've heard and you vaguely sort of know what it is, and you throw it out there to try and make yourself sound clever. Well, here's the problem, Mikey. People who do know what that word means know that you've misused it and know that you're a fucking half-wit, and that's what's happened here. Alex, there are, Andy nailed it there for me where he said, you can say it wasn't a penalty, right, when it clearly was, to annoy, Rangers fans, because that's doesn't really matter, really, in the grand scheme of the world, right? That's just football. But there are certain things that you just want to be surely on the right side of history, and you just go, yep, I'm going to fall in with this. What can I do to help? And surely that's just a matter of a basic conscience.
Yeah, you guys have summed it up perfectly for me. It wasn't so much the first part of what he was saying that bothered me. His whole, we have to be careful here, we don't have this evidence or that evidence. And I would have disagreed with him. If all he had said was, I don't believe the evidence that we have at the moment supports this accusation enough for me to, go all out and say that this definitely happened. See, if that's all he'd said, I would have disagreed with him because of the things that you've pointed out.
Yeah, I don't believe that's a tenable position.
I don't believe it is either, but, I would have said, okay, right, so that's him giving an opinion. It's another nonsense one. Okay. I would have ignored it largely, if I'm being honest, but I would have ignored it as a nonsense opinion. But the part that really bothered me about it was then to say, we need to allow UEFA to have this investigation, and if UEFA don't find anything's happened, then nothing happened. He used the Vigers situation earlier in the season, didn't he, as an example of that. Oh, there was a big investigation and nothing came of it, so that must have meant nothing happened, was pretty much his words along those lines. And as you pointed out, that's just nonsense. And if that's the attitude that he believes we should have, then it does lead to a whole lot of problems. That Slavia Prague player knew what he was doing. Absolutely knew what he was doing with the way he covered his mouth, with how quickly he done it. And it was his reaction afterwards that really bothered me, David, because I said this on another one of the pods that we do in Patreon. If I had said something that had been misconstrued or had said what he claimed and then got told that I was a racist, I would have been pretty angry, you know? I would have been a wee bit wound up and been saying, well, hold on a second here. And my action wouldn't have been largely what he did, which was put his hands up, shrugged his shoulders and walked away. His reaction was largely, what are you going to do? Because he knew he couldn't get a definitive, it wasn't on tape. He'd covered his mouth. He knew exactly what he was doing. And that was, the fact that people are then saying, oh, if you can't prove it, nothing could have happened. That's the bit that bothers me the most of what Michael Stewart said, because that's no longer just opinion. That's him trying to state some sort of fact. That's him stating, it's as Andy said, it's one way or the other. There's no grey areas here, and we need to wait on what UEFA say. I don't believe UEFA are going to do very much about this, guys. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
It's
I don't think they'll do much. Yeah,
no, they won't. They'll hit both clubs with a fine, and then they'll ignore it and hope it goes away, like they always do in situations like this. But no, as I say, I just felt that there are this idea, and look, you get false accusations of serious things, and they're horrible things, and you're right, we do have to guard against it. But you look at all the evidence. He'd had his mind made up immediately. He didn't look at any. He said afterwards, I didn't know Zungu could corroborate it. Right, this was the Friday night. He said this. That's bollocks. You knew instantly that Zungu, and Rangers said on the Friday night and on the Thursday night. So nonsense. It was, I'm going to take this position and damn the facts, and it's too serious a subject to do that with. And it was a disgrace. It was an absolute disgrace. Right then, moving on, folks. We will move on to the fixtures are out, and our third trip of the season is to, drumroll, Livingston, Andy. Title day will be the 15th, or trophy day rather, will be the 15th against Aberdeen at home. We have Celtic on May the 2nd, and we also have a home fixture against Hibs and away fixture at St Johnstone. Scottish Cup's coming up. Is that the focus? The manager said he'll use the squad.
Yeah, I think we are having a wee mini season here, and I think this international break and the fact we win the league can set us up quite nicely to have a real focus on that Scottish Cup. And we spoke about Scott Wright earlier on. I'm chomping at a bit to see him in the team, because I think we've got a wee bit of dynamite there that could change the whole dynamism of that team. I think we could have the same thing we get for Kent on the left, on the right with Scott Wright in terms of runs and all sorts, and pace and power. So players like him will get their chance and get bled into the team in earnest now. So we've got a real good chance to have a blast at the Scottish Cup, and we'll play Celtic again in there. I have no doubt about it, and that'll be the one that matters. Interested to see we're going back to Livingston again. This is the kind of, when was the last time these post-split fixtures ever fell in our way? I can't really remember ever really falling our way when it matters. So let's thank everybody for getting the league tied up before that. And I think we've got a May Day holiday the day after the Rangers Celtic game, haven't we?
We do, yeah.
Holiday, so no doubt Hamza and Nicola, if she's still there, will be rolling out the empty threats to make sure that we all behave and all this bollocks. Or maybe we'll be back into some kind of semblance of civility in society, and we might actually get a wee bit of a party that's no dissected and blamed for everything and anything. So 5 fixtures that mean fuck all, really. Let's go for the Scottish Cup. 6 figures.
Well, you're right. And if it was a case of win the Scottish Cup and maybe don't do so well in the league games, we'd all take it. But Alex, you don't get these opportunities that often. Doesn't mean any in the grand scheme of things, I get it. But to put yourself within 5 matches of an undefeated season, that's an opportunity.
Yeah. And we had a bit of a go at McCoy's, remember, when he done it back in League One.
Very different, Alex.
Yes, that's what I was just about to point out. This time it is quite different. and would be far more laudable, obviously. Now, it shouldn't be done at the expense of anything longer term. I totally get that. I don't want any players ran into the ground to such that you're looking at an injury in pre-season being disrupted for the next season or whatever. We don't need to do that. But yeah, I think Andy's right. The timing of this international break's spot on. It's going to give a lot of the squad time to just kind of sit back, take everything in, get refocused, get energy levels back up. And it's a little mini season, as you say, just those 5 league games, Scottish Cup. Let's see what we can do here. Let's try and find the performance levels when we need them. And let's see what guys can do who come in, because I think that we will use the league games for a bit more rotation. If there's a cup game, in close proximity, you'll see the strongest team played there, and maybe guys like Wright and Itten getting chances in those league games that maybe they wouldn't have got otherwise. So it'll be good that way as well, because we've got a fair bit of energy, and on that bench, guys waiting, busting at the gut to get their chance. And I hope that's something that can drive us on towards the end of the season as well. I'm hoping, David, 5 games, and the next 5 league games undefeated, it would be huge. It doesn't matter what the makeup of that is, really. 5 draws would feel disappointing. It's not going to be that, but yeah, it would be some achievement to go the full season unbeaten in the league. In the Scottish Cup, well, that would just be icing on the cake, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would be very happy with that if we were to get our goals. And given the season we're having, then you wouldn't bet against it. You'll get full coverage of it, of course, over on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Heart and Hand. That's patreon.com/Heart and Hand. And if you visit our website, which is just heartandhand.co.uk, you'll get our full range of 55 tat. Loads of shite with our logo and 55 on it. If that's your thing. Right, thanks to our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, and thanks to my 2 guests today, the splendid Alexander Staff.
Thank you.
The wonderful Andy McGowan.
Pleasure as always, David.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks, so until then, stay safe, take care. Oh, and by the way, remember, we are the champions. Take care. Bye-bye.